and welcome to the Big Design Show. We are extremely excited to have you today morning, and sorry about the glitches that have happened. We are also
No
trying
problem.
to get used to podcast recording and put the platform on, and it's new for us, but we are also thinking that it'll go a long way. So that's what we are doing. And
Great.
thank you so much. I hope you
Thank
and
you
your
for having
family are
me.
doing well and
We're
coping
doing
up
good,
well in
thanks.
the lockdown. How are you doing in the lockdown?
Good. Actually, I've been up in the mountains in Uttarakhand for the
Okay.
last 8 months.
Okay.
So been a little sheltered, so to speak, from all the craziness that's happening in the world. So
Wow.
yeah, so it's been a bit of a different perspective, but it makes you slow down and understand what the things that are important are and what to focus on. And luckily for me, I've been able to carry my work here and work from here as well. So that's it's been an interesting challenge, but it's also been a good learning experience, and it's been good.
So it's more inspiring as a designer to travel and to shift base and to find inspirations in new spaces.
Absolutely. Nature's always been an inspiration for me. So I love to travel wherever it may be. I'm always picking up something or the other that inspires me, and I do translate that into the work that I do. So it's been great, and just being up here in the mountains, it's been really nice to sort of get inspired by little things. I mean, my first chair that I made here was inspired by a caterpillar. So you know how they have lots of legs, so
Hmm.
even the shades that I designed here had a lot of legs and sort of had this like movement and fluidity that one would see in like these little insects that you know turn into butterflies and stuff. So there's inspiration every corner that you look. So it's been quite exciting.
Wow. Our listeners would like to know more about the work that you do. We are in absolute awe looking at the work, the palette that you've made for yourself. But please tell us more about your work.
Sure. So a little background about how I started. I'm a product designer. So I got interested in this whole woodworking aspect of design in college at Parsons in New York. And I had no connect with wood or designing furniture or anything before that, or even, you know, in my family or anything. So this was a totally new avenue, a new material, a new medium to work with. And I knew that somewhere down the line I would like to turn this into a career if I could, or do something along the lines of woodworking. So when I moved back to India, I started off pretty small, just working on little project for the house, figuring out like one piece of furniture at a time. And then slowly, like with the support of my family, and they saw something within me. They were like, this is something you really should pursue. So of course, one doesn't jump in big, you start small. So I wanted to take ownership of my manufacturing. So I made sure that I kept like a small workshop, a small set of a small team, a set of carpenters that I could oversee, I could direct, we could learn from one another. I didn't want to outsource. I didn't want to sort of just design on paper, because I think the beauty of actually looking at the material and seeing how it behaves and manipulates on the shop floor with the machines, with the hand tools, everything is the best learning experience. So the whole idea of actually building is one thing and designing is another. We can't design in a vacuum. We can't just draw something on paper or make a model of it on the computer and say this is exactly how it's going to be, because wood, specifically speaking, is it's a very dynamic material. It moves, it changes. Even though it's not living anymore, it still has a lot of characteristics of it being alive. For example, if on humid days or where there's more moisture in the air, the wood would tend to swell up, and when it's very cold and dry, it'll like contract. So you have to keep all those things in mind as well when you're trying to figure out what it is, and all those can't be done on a drawing or in a CAD model. So the most exciting thing for me is like working on the shop floor, working with the carpenters, seeing how we can make things work. And then of course, figuring out and troubleshooting all the problems that come along the way, which is part of the challenge, which I enjoy. So yeah, that being said, it's been about 2015 is when I officially started my company, Differniture. And we've been doing a sculpture meets function, almost like something is aesthetically pleasing, but it also serves a function of it being useful. And the underlining premise of the whole of Differniture is that it follows a sustainable pathway. So everything from acquiring raw material to even the polish and finish that goes on top, to how much material is used and how much is wasted, is also taken into account. So minimal to zero waste design process is something that I really focus on. But as that is, of course, in an ideal world, right? You want to create as less waste and create a product which has as less impact on the environment as possible in its initial phase of actually growing the product, as well as in its end of its life phase. That if one were to literally bring this product back to earth, burn it down to like the very core that it is, like down to ash, how much of an impact would that have on the environment? You see a lot of furniture that's coated in like high gloss and polyester finishes, which are essentially all just like pouring plastic onto like a natural, very durable material, which is in my mind quite unnecessary, because when it comes down to it actually degrading into the ground, the kind of toxins that will be emitted from that layer of plastic, as well as the harm that it takes on the body of somebody who's actually applying that on in the beginning of its life, are not really worth going through all that and exposing our environment to all those toxic materials. So while I've been up here, I have I do use oils and waxes and natural finishes. But since I've been up in the mountains, I've actually created my own wood polish, which is all sustainable from beeswax that the beekeeper has, like in our village. Picked that up from him, got some organic oil, mixed it together, and just been experimenting along the way. So along with inspiration, it's also been a lot of experimenting this year. Yeah.
So it's amazing, and when I hear you out and when I look at your story, it's quite an ideal kind of a situation where you are actually following your passion, trying to be sustainable. I mean, most of us would love to do that, but I'm also interested in understanding, how did you face, or did you face any commercial challenges along the way, or did you always found buyers? And it just, because ultimately to run a business also means that it has to be somewhere viable. You need to pay to your team, your carpenters, designers, etc. So as we also as entrepreneurs shoulder that responsibility, which we would love to forget as designers, but ultimately we want it to be viable also. So tell us, how did you keep it relevant in terms of the commercial aspect?
So initially, and for the first maybe year or so, I did the sustainable side of things, like procuring the raw material that was reclaimed or salvaged or discarded. And there's a lot of it out there. So I haven't had a problem with like running short of material that I could get a hold of. So that's not been a problem. Initially, of course, finding the right sources and getting those systems into place was took whatever time it had to take. But now those are sort of more automated, so to speak. So the idea was that I'm a designer. I need consciously, I wanted to be held responsible for what I bring out into the environment. And that's something I did for myself. So going forward, this whole discussion and story of sustainability never came up. I never spoke about it to my customers. They looked at my products, they didn't realize or didn't think that they were made from discarded material. So that was just something I was doing for myself, just to because I felt like I owed it to the earth to do that. But slowly people started getting interested in this dialogue, and that's when I started actually talking about it and, pulling out certain elements which I wanted people to know about because I saw the interest. So there's definitely an interest of people appreciating materials that's been used once, discarded, turned into something else, which, just by the glance of it, you may not even realize, because it's not that I'm just, sticking slabs of reclaimed wood together and putting 4 legs and saying it's a reclaimed table. I think the design process and the handcraft and the manufacturing is also something that's very strong and important for me. And so the idea of creating something sustainable and also finding like the niche market. Of course, I'm not a mass manufacturer. I'm not someone who's making thousands of these, because I think the whole story behind it also gets diluted if I'm just churning out, the same thing. I want each customer, and I'm sure they also want something that is made for their space. We customize as well. So if they have a certain space and they like a certain design element within my collection, they want it to be translated into something else, we do customize for that. So working with designers, interior designers, architects, and also homeowners who are interested in design, we are willing and we do create specifically for spaces. So that makes that, and everybody, I mean, of course, why wouldn't you want something that's made just for your space, and something that that they're not going to be thousands and thousands of everywhere else. So that is the niche market that I do target, and it's very much there. So far, I have only tapped into the Indian side of things, but people have urged me to look elsewhere as well, because my aesthetic does appeal a lot to like the outside world, the West, etc. So that's something maybe for another time, maybe post COVID. Let's see. But I'm excited to see that a lot of people are interested in something alternative, in something that has a story behind it, in something that's environmentally conscious. And there may be in cities like Delhi, where I'm from, people would like 1 or 2 accent pieces in their homes, or some interesting lighting in their commercial spaces or hospitality. But there's this whole culture of like second and third homes, holiday homes, like in Goa, up in the hills, where people want to experiment some more. So that's where we have more fun, like figuring out, doing some interesting products, and maybe going a little crazier than we would in, say, someone's like first home. So that's always looking at holiday homes is always a fun aspect.
So yeah, so looking at your approach, when you say that you could actually manufacture your own wood wax, or experiment with things that are available locally, it seems so that you are quite rooted to the Indian aspects, and trying to take complete advantage of or of our country and the craftsmen and the skills that you put to your complete advantage, and use it in your passion and your venture. But you have graduated from Parsons, and we'd like to understand how the education and the approach is coming together, and what would you like to tell students how important the college is in terms of design education. And because we always aspire to study in these colleges where we are exposed to big names and designers, and understand their design philosophy. So what impact has it had on you, and how much do you feel is important? There might be someone who's extremely nice in design, however has not been to a formal school, and so many of us have been to a formal school but still look up to someone else. So where does this come together, and what do you feel as a designer the role of college has been in your complete shaping of your career?
No, that's a great question, and a great concern for a lot of young designers, people who are getting into college. I totally get it. Of course, there will be different schools of thought, but I will give you my perspective on it. So again, like I said, I had no connect with woodworking, with furniture, with anything about actually building by hand. And I learned the skills, I learned the joinery, I learned the traditional method of woodworking, learned to use the power tools, learn to use the CNC machines, the laser cutters, the 3D printers, all of that was all part of my college learning experience, something that I had no connect with or wouldn't have been able to really get to know without it. So understanding the basis of the field, the industry, whatever it may be in design, is the most important thing. If you don't know, it's only because I know what the traditional joinery is, how you're supposed, the reason why I'm able to direct my carpenters now, because I know I can visualize, I can make, if it comes down to, I can build it myself. And I know exactly what goes into creating that. And that being said, it's also the reason why I've taken the traditional form of woodworking and turned it on its head, because I'm not focusing that way anymore. So as much as it's really important to have that basis and that foundation of how this industry has been coming along for like thousands of years, uh, it's also because I know that, and because I know what I can manipulate, what I can alter, what I can change, is how I've been able to, create more sculpture in my pieces, rather than sticking to the same framework of like a typical chair or a typical table. So definitely, to the students out there, I would say it's good to get a basis of the industry, of what you're interested in, whatever it may be, and then try and put your own element into it. Because you're not going to be in college. Of course, we're building ourselves, we're making things. I would design a chair and I would build it myself, and we'll all go through that process. But when you're out in the real world, say you're working for a designer, or you have a studio of your own, the chances of you actually building your own products are going to be slim. You're going to be focusing on so many other things related to business that you wouldn't have thought of. Case in point, of every day is a new learning experience. I am a designer after all, so it's the business side of things is something I've been learning on the go, which has been interesting. But sometimes you may design, but you will have someone to manufacture it for you. So how do you explain to the designers, explain to the craftsmen, explain to the karigars how you want something to be made? The only way you can do that is if you have a basic understanding, or a more than basic understanding of the craft.
So you do feel that the formal education system somewhere forms a formal as well as a stronger foundation?
Yes, definitely. Because, these are all vocational skills. Speaking about the carpenters that I work with now or in the past, they've all learned this skill from their fathers, and they've learned it from their fathers. So it's something that's been coming along from generation to generation. So even they've understood the basis. And so in order for you to direct them, see, the thing, us as designers, is we see the future, we see what the need is or the requirement is for the market. As beautiful as our crafts have been all along, we don't want them to get stagnated in a very traditional form, or a traditional, like there's a lot of heavily ornamented, hand carved furniture that we know and have been seeing, in our grandparents' houses, and in like old homes. And but we, I think, need to see that, okay, that is our history, and we need to respect that. And it's skilled workers like I have now that we have been working on creating products that are a little bit different from the traditional, because they have to shift from the traditional to the modern. Our requirements have changed,
True.
our aesthetics have changed.
Yeah.
Things have to sort of take that shift. So who does that? The craftsmen still know their way of, the handicraft, but it's the designers that have to make that shift happen. So with the help of the workers, with the help of the carpenters, skilled workers, craftsmen, we have to direct them into the future. So that's our job.
So, but we as practitioners often come across people who have not been to a formal design school, yet they might be, applauded and appreciated by a lot of clientele. And so that means that design is also an acumen which can be acquired or probably is there within you. So,
I honestly, I mean, I didn't, looking back, had I thought that I would be in this direction of work, making this sort of stuff, I don't know if I would have known for sure whether it was something that was within me.
true.
Uh, That being said, formal education, what happens with design is that, in fact, I just finished an online class that I co-taught with a professor of mine from Parsons in Philadelphia. And we were working with, I think, sophomore students on a design project. So the whole idea, it was really interesting to see a different perspective of, not being a
True.
student, but being a teacher
Yes.
within this space.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
of course, the question or the problem was addressed to the students, and
Yes.
they had to come up. And what we were as teachers, we weren't there to direct them according to our design aesthetic. It was all on them. It was what
True.
they wanted to do, what they wanted to design, what they liked, what they didn't like. And we were there just as a support system and someone to like bounce ideas off of, and just like start a dialogue based off of what was originally and will always be their design idea. So
Right.
each student had its own idea, their own way of developing it. Of course, we gave basic, broader sort of assignments or things to help them get from one stage to the next, just to for them to think out loud, to experiment, to prototype, to actually create by hand. So, but at the end of the day, it is something that is your interpretation of what design is, in whatever aspect of design that may be. So although I have had a formal education in woodworking, and maybe someone can acquire that same education by looking at YouTube videos or like doing some online courses, or getting an apprenticeship with some woodworker. There are different ways of acquiring skills. So maybe some work better in an academic setting, while some students work better learning themselves. So essentially, whatever works for you, whether you're disciplined enough to like learn on your own, that's amazing. I'm sure a lot of 17-year-olds out there like me may not have had that kind of discipline going into college, but or learning on our own. But that's something that's great even now, like because of COVID. I've taken some online classes. I've been interested in concrete and incorporating some concrete into my furniture. So it's a skill I want to learn and want to figure out. So we have the access to this incredible resource, which is the internet. So why not use that as well in conjunction? Or maybe if you're good at just picking up stuff on the go, then it's never too late to pick up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Sounds so relevant in our times. And, but
Yeah.
along this way, since you have had such wonderful teachers to guide you, a reputed college, and then your conscious, getting into the furniture, the wood line, everything, are there any glitches that you've made, or, somewhere fumbled and wish you didn't make that mistake? Or, we'd like to know more about how you overcame all these barriers to become and to establish what you have today.
So honestly, every day is a challenge. And it's not a challenge in a bad way, it's a challenge in a moving forward way. I may give so since I've been in Uttarakhand for the last 8 months, my manufacturing originally was in Delhi. And just before lockdown happened, a few weeks before, my carpenters over there said, we would like to go home. Everyone's moving home. There was a whole migrant labor shift that happened. I was like, look, we've never experienced something like this before. If you feel like you want to be with your family, I totally get it. I'm not going to stop you. Let's figure this out as the months, as the weeks. I mean, who knew it was going to be months? But as the weeks progress, and we'll take it from there. So they left, and I came up with my family up here, and we were first, let's say, 2 months was total lockdown, and there was nothing. We did not step out of the house. Nothing was happening. But just being outside and being, luckily we did have the about being in nature, and there were plus points of being here rather than being in Delhi. And once the lockdown lifted, I was itching to, in the meantime, I would do little things myself by hand, that I would make and create, post on my Instagram for other people to do, stuff that was easy to do around the house or what you could pick up and figure out. So, but then once the lockdown opened, I was like, okay, now I need to sort of figure out what the next step is. We were clearly here for, quite a while. So let's figure out what to do next. So I'm in a really small village, vegetables and everything is very self-contained. So I just happened to ask around. I was like, are there any carpenters that have maybe moved back home because of this migrant shift? And somebody who've just come back from Chennai. They come back before the lockdown, and so I said, okay, let me speak to them. Let's see what we can do. In the meantime, just to give you backstory, like I have been working on a project up here in the hills, which is sort of a little more large scale than my furniture business. So instead of looking at a particular piece of furniture, I'm actually going to be building and designing homes, like holiday homes up here.
That's
So
beautiful.
where I am currently is my first sample house that I've created.
Oh,
And yeah, and now, and I had built a factory close to my sample house that started last year. So I think the timing was pretty good. So these two carpenters, they come up and they look at my stuff and they look at my factory, which also is quite bizarre. And they're like, we are woodworkers, but हम बस चौखट वौखट का काम करते हैं. We just make frames and windows and doors. I don't think we'll be capable of doing the kind of stuff that you want us to do. So I was like, okay, I need some windows and door kind of work. So why don't we start? And in my mind, I said, okay, while they do this, I will suss them out, try and figure out what their caliber is, what they're capable of doing. And then slowly I started like injecting my little design sort of into the work. And the one thing I've learned, having worked with the labor class, the skilled workers, you can't overwhelm them with too much information. You have to give them small enough bite-sized chunks of
true.
information that we build up into something big.
Yes.
So I started off that way, and that's how I've been training and working with all my carpenters for the past few years. And now and it's been about 4 months we've been working together. And the kind of, when we finish a project or we finish something, just that look in their faces that, they made something that they didn't think they thought they would be able to make, I think for me is a great feeling. And it's just wonderful to be able to give that opportunity to them, because otherwise they would have been, just looking for odd jobs, not having anything steady, and also having given up their work in like ply factories, etc., in the south. And so it's just like, I think our paths had to cross at this point. So it's been a really good learning. Also, my focus on training carpenters, because I had a team that I've had for a while now. We're working on some projects remotely while they're at home, but there's only so much that one can do when you're not in the same place. But actually having them here, I've been able to re-evaluate what it takes to train someone and what I need to focus on and how I can streamline that. So there's been a lot of interesting learning for me as well during this time.
That's wonderful, and that's making the best of the available opportunities. So, in your
Yeah.
journey, who do you think has been your constant support and that one pillar that you could always run back to professionally? I mean, apart from our friends, our parents, and do you have any mentor, or do you have any one go-to person where you feel that you can get professional help?
So I would have to say it would be my family at this point, because like my dad and my brother are chartered accountants. They have the finance side of things, which I don't have, I don't possess. My mom is an artist, so she is good in that element, like just consulting or just bouncing back ideas if I may have any. But I think I need the focus on like the finance side of things or the business side of things. I do go back to my dad and my brother for that, because they know more, and they kind of, and I learn from them. So yeah, so far. And it's also been a lot of just like, I mean, it's not like I'm directing my workers to work in a certain way. It's a back and forth. It's a two-sided relationship. They may give me some ideas of how to create things. We all live in this. I mean, India is known for this whole jugaad sort of approach, how we make do with whatever is available. And that has really helped us in this more alternative production that we do. It's not, I'm not using the typical joinery. How can I change and still make it sturdy and resilient enough? So I learn from them, they learn from me. It's not, one is not above the other. So in the design, and I think for every step of the way, there's someone or the other that's always there, that everyone has their own expertise. So better to focus on, what they are good at, and learn from them, be it in the business side of things or finance or design or production.
So when you sum up, or when you look back at your journey and look forward to what's ahead, do you have any specific goal in mind, or an achievement that might make you feel creatively also satisfied, and also to feel that, okay, this is what I wanted, and this is, now I feel that I have arrived? So is there any life goal, or is there any, a big target, or, something that you are looking at? It could be an opportunity in terms of design. It could be achieving something, or it could just be something else. 15 years down the line, there could be something else that you would love to do and venture out into. So have you ever given this a thought?
So like I mentioned, my project in the hills that I'm working on, it's something that's been a long time coming. We've been working on this for a long time. My dad has spent the past few years acquiring land, and this is like a long haul project. It's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. This is maybe a decade, maybe more, of creating a community, creating something that's environmentally conscious, that's been sustainably designed. I think whenever that may be, when that comes into fulfillment, and I can actually see that this is, and the scale is so massive, it's not something I've ever done before. So to see that whole thing materialize and actually come into being, I think will be a really exciting point in my life. But I will have to wait for that. It's going to be a
So
while.
when you talk about such a scale, and the excitement, the nervousness, and also that it's your dad's project, the kind of responsibility that it brings to you, do you look at collaborations and seeking guidance from other professionals or senior
Sure.
architects, or uh,
So
how do you put this together?
I think, yeah, definitely. Like I said, everyone has their own skills, and learning from people who know what's happening and they've been entrenched in their own respective field will be really important to sort of understand and make this something that's very different from what's already out there. In terms of architects, I will like to figure out. So this sample house that I made, it's something I created by myself, the exterior, the interior, everything. And of course, since I don't have the wherewithal of,
True.
like the architect brain, I don't have that. I did work with structural engineers to understand what I need to focus on, load bearing and otherwise, and work around that. So definitely picking up from different people's viewpoints, and then merging it into something that's well designed and also strong enough and sturdy, and all of that is something that is important and the way forward.
Sure. So
Collaboration
you
is
would,
everything about
collaboration is
design.
absolutely, yeah,
Yes,
absolutely. So
yes,
we are, I think, living in a more cohesive world where we are all, more open to each other, learning from each other, collaborating, and not looking at any competitions, but looking more at inspirations. So
absolutely.
that's great, Akriti, and that's wonderful to hear from you. It was an excellent session, understanding someone who's doing something so different and taken furniture to a completely different level, which we have not experienced yet. And we wish you all the luck, and we wish that
Thank
more
you.
and more people would be more conscious when they are buying, and would look at these pieces as pieces of art and not just as pieces of furniture. So all the best, Akriti, and thank you so much for your time. Thank
Thank you
you
so much,
for
Ridhima.
being a part of the Big Design Show. And very
My
soon,
pleasure.
the learnings that we've gathered from you will reach a lot of people, and they will also understand the three main important things that you spoke about: the collaboration, the education, which is so important, and learning from grassroots level people who are actually doing the things and coming up with something that hasn't been seen before. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you so much, Ridhima.
Thank
And
you
it's
so
been
much, Akriti, for
great.
taking out time. Really appreciate it.